Do you think pop culture is always looked down on? I think so. I mean, why is it that when I say critically acclaimed film, there's a bunch of characteristics that's already in your mind? I mean, why is this always the example for a critically acclaimed film and this just a dumb commercial film? This bias is so bad that people refer to popular films as guilty pleasures and turn your brain off entertainers and stuff like that. This kind of thing happens in all the art forms, like let's say music, Katy Perry or Ed Sheeran. These people are always looked at as the bad popular musicians, and people like Radiohead are the pinnacle of music industry. Clearly a bias in the way we look at these properties. Now let's find out if this view of ours is actually true. I first started with a generic Google search and I didn't really get much. I just found a few blogs which are complaining about how popular movies are bad and art movies are better and blah blah blah. Not what I wanted. Then I went to Google Scholar and actually started looking at research papers. Here also I spent almost an hour searching with the same generic terms which didn't really give much. So I didn't find a lot that I exactly want, but I did find enough that I have a base now. Another thing is that I've done similarish research for my college dissertation, so that's a good help. And also ChatGPT was not helpful. It made up some of the websites and research articles, so that's kind of scary. But after almost an hour, I figured out that the actual question, I guess the correct search term, which was high culture versus popular culture. First, let's define popular culture. Popular culture refers to a media commodity that is consumed by a large number of audience. The main characteristic is their accessibility and appeal to a wide audience. Now, the opposite to that is high culture. High culture is broadly defined as the kind of media that high cultured people like myself would want to watch to distinguish ourselves from low class peasants. High class and low class is in two ways. One, it is social class, and another is educational level. From here on, the research was all over the place. I really was trying to figure out what I wanted to even find out. Each of these research papers pushed me into a different direction. I was like, oh, this is interesting. I can read about it. Oh, this is also interesting. I can read about it. And it was just too ambitious, way too big. And another issue we had was time. We had only a week to research and shoot and finish it all up. And this time was not enough to do the kind of research that I was aiming to do. I was trying to skim through multiple books at the same time, getting very vague answers. In one of these books, they were talking about how containing culture during American Cold War somehow is related to pornography, and it was just, very out of what I wanted. But as I was spiraling, I found two papers which actually became the base for the video. One is called Pop Culture and High Culture, an Analysis and Evaluation of Taste by Gans and Herbert. The second one is called High Culture Unraveled by Marcel van den Haak. In my research till now, I found out four main ways where high culture and low culture is differentiated. One, complexity. This is complex in two ways. It is complex to produce and it's complex to understand. This is why you only see very big artsy directors talk about their process and how meticulous it is and how deep it is. And commercial directors just talk about like, oh, how is it working with this actor? Was it cool? Stuff like that. Number two, originality. We always assume that high art is what actually produces and breaks stereotypes, and popular culture just does cliches. High art is always supposed to stand the test of time. It needs to be relevant even after years, and popular culture, well, it's popular only for a certain type. And finally, number four, moral superiority. This is a point that is very irrelevant right now because historically moral values were always propagated in high culture movies, and popular culture movies were supposed to be vulgar, where they show the dirty things. And now we know that is the switch, where that the popular movies kind of are way more morally superior and the high art films are way more morally ambiguous. The problem with all these four metrics is, one, this is definitely irrelevant, like we already said before. And these three, complexity, originality and timelessness, do not only refer to high culture movies anymore. There are many examples of popular films which follow all these criteria. Let's say Inception is a very popular film and it is complex because dreams, It's original because dreams, and it's timeless because Nolan. And we have more such examples of popular films, doing all these three things. So I got a new haircut and new glasses. This video took way too long. Here's a small history lesson to understand where these terms high culture and low culture actually came from. Before industrialization, roughly between 16th and 17th century, all art was produced by a small group of elite who could actually afford to fund these projects. So the culture was made by them and was for them. Thanks to industrialization, we see a lot of common people now with money who could create their own art. Suddenly, these elite people who were controlling the culture needed to distinguish themselves. That's when they came up with this term of high culture. So whatever they produce is high culture, and whatever these common folk produce is low culture. Within the nomenclature of these terms itself, we can see that there's a hierarchy of social class, which is like higher class and lower class. And that's why we have these two terms. These are all the major arguments against pop culture, and I'll break each of these down as we move on further. First criticism. Pop culture is just a commercial enterprise and their sole motive is to maximize profits. They do this by creating a standardized product that can appeal to a wide audience. In this equation, the artist becomes like an assembly line worker who has no individual expression. Now, the problem with this criticism is that a profit-seeking mindset is prevalent both in high culture and low culture. In fact, in high culture, they have to be more profit-minded because it's a smaller market size. Basically, they have to appeal to this smaller niche even harder than popular culture might do. This is why all the Oscar-y movies come in the same few months, why so much money is put into the Oscar campaign. And even if Oscar award itself is supposed to represent the artistic value, what it actually represents is the bargaining power for every artist involved in the equation. It basically allows them to show this Oscar award and be like, dude, I have the Oscar award, can you just fund my future projects? And they get it done. Criticism. Pop culture has harmful effects on high culture because they are luring away all the high cultured artists by giving them money and comforts, and now there is no high art, there's no high culture, it's all gone. Firstly, I don't see a problem with cultures borrowing from each other. And secondly, their main argument comes from a very gatekeeping mindset where it's like, dude, if my high art becomes popular, it loses its prestige, which is very stupid. And it's actually very prevalent in music because I've seen comments where people say stuff like, dude, I hope this indie artist stay indie because if he goes to mainstream, then it ain't cool anymore. And it's so annoying because the artist and the consumer, you, would be in a better place if you just let them make money. Trust me, all these artists are in a better mental space if they're making money from some gig than them staying on the streets and singing their heart out, creating the highest of arts. Make money good. Capitalism rocks. And the final criticism is that pop culture has a negative impact on the audience. This is because pop culture provides a gratification for the audience's basic needs of escapism. Essentially, it reduces the taste level and culture level of every audience member. But this is clearly based on a historical fallacy where you're taking the best from the past and comparing it with the worst of the future. It's basically like taking 2001: A Space Odyssey from 1960s and comparing it with the Minions from now. Of course, Minions is gonna look bad, but not every movie right now is the Minions and not every movie in 60s is a Space Odyssey. See, it's a problem. And if you actually accurately take a historical sample, you can clearly see that the tastes and movies have gotten better. This is simply because there's more education, and thanks to internet, it's very easy to discover and learn about cinema. We have sequels and remakes which are better than the originals. For example, Blade Runner 2049, which is much better than the old Blade Runner. We have Mad Max Fury Road, which is much better than the original. All these criticisms talk about the audience in a very condescending way, where they look at them like these robots with no intelligence, no thought of their own, and they can be easily manipulated by mass media. Adding on to that, high culture does not even take audience into consideration when it comes to their creative process. It is very creator oriented. I would say a better way to look at the entire process would be a co-authoring experience where the artist creates the meaning and the audience then shapes it according to their own experience. And this is the main reason why popular culture is popular, because they actually give a shit about their audience. I mean, we know that both high culture and popular culture want to make money. It's just that one of them pretends like the audience does not matter to them, and one of them actually gives a shit about their audience. If you give a shit about your audience, you get an audience. If you get audience, you make money. If you make money, you can keep making your art. It's very simple. Despite the growth of popular culture, high culture still exists. Yes, they have lost their overall monopoly on the culture itself, but that's actually a good thing. Both these cultures can coexist at the same time. I know that we have more of the Marvel and DC movies now, but at the same time, we have the smaller Kodas and everything everywhere all at once, which are still making money, which are still making a big impact. Now, then, why is this an issue? Why do we actually look down on popular culture? And I think from all the research I've done till now, it comes from a very defensive mindset of the elite who want to protect their own cultural and political privileges. Like any other defensive ideology, it makes the opponent look 10 times stronger than they actually are and exaggerate their harmful effects. This creates a very hostile environment around popular culture, which makes it very hard to actually take them seriously and analyze them. I found enough and more evidence to show that yes, popular culture or anything that is popular tends to be looked down on. But then a bigger question came to my mind. So what? How does it matter? Popular culture still makes the most money, billions of dollars. Popular culture still controls most film industries. So what does it matter? This looking down is clearly not affecting them in any way, right? And this was the point where I was like, I felt like I won because I proved my hypothesis that hell yeah, dude, like pop culture is looked down on, and that's fact. But there needs to be a purpose or like something. And again, I was talking to Prasanna, I was going over the ideas, really trying to understand, okay, what did we even achieve with this? And that's when it hit me. There was an effect. There is simply not enough literature or analysis around popular films. And these popular films are the backbone of every film industry. This is why we see critics call every commercial movie as mindless garbage. And this is why commercial directors often say things like, oh, I make my movies only for my audience and not for the critics. And from their perspective, it makes sense, because if all the feedback you're getting from your movie is, oh, I guess I shouldn't have made the movie in the first place because it's big and commercial, it's not gonna help them. It's not gonna help them make better movies. Now let's take an example of any Indian film industry. Let's say we get like 10% of commercial hits. These are probably made by the big auteurs within the commercial cinema genre, like your Rajamoulis, your Lokesh Kanagaraj's, your Sukumars, all of these people. Now, let's say there are 25% of indie artsy movies. What we have left with is 65% of mediocre commercial movies which are not successful, not good, and they're just mediocre. I feel like one of the contributing factors to this big percentage is the lack of feedback loops for them. Let's take any middling commercial directors. Vamsi Paidipalli. We all know him, we've all memed him. But if there was a point where he was getting constant feedback, he was getting proper analysis of why his movies were not working, maybe he could have changed. Maybe he actually could have tried. Now, there's no chance of a director like him actually improving, because all the feedback he's getting from the audience is that, dude, it's not a good movie, I don't like it, no money. And from the critics, it's just, dude, you shouldn't have made this in the first place because it's a bad, big commercial movie. You should have made a small indie movie, which is not helpful for any commercial director. What if I want to make a big commercial movie? What if I don't want to make a artsy, indie, Satyajit Ray movie? Well, apparently I should not, because it's only for dumb people and I am supposed to be smarter, so intellectually I should not. If it's commercial movies only for dumb baboon brain people. Why? A world without popular culture simply cannot exist. In fact, there was an attempt by the communist government in Eastern Europe to completely take away popular culture and create an official high culture. But people just didn't like that and they wanted their popular culture back and they got it back. The irony is that high culture needs popular culture, not just for the practical reasons of, hey, one of us needs to make money to fund your big high culture movies, but also theoretically, to have a high culture, you need a lower culture to compare yourself to. The bigger irony is that high culture artists keep preaching for freedom of expression, creativity, but they don't actually want it when it comes to popular films. Why is it so hard for people to just believe that some people's way of expression is just through popular media? Why is it so hard for people to believe that some people just like watching popular movies? You don't always want a challenging film. Sometimes you just need a good time at the movies.
This took a while to make.
Yes.
Anyway, this was a very new format for us, and that's why it took so long. We were figuring out the graphics and how to shoot it and what not to do, yada yada.
We will be doing more in this style, and I hope you guys enjoyed this style of video. And
because you're not getting anything else, like
there'll be lesser reviews and lesser streams, but more essay style, documentary style videos. Hopefully you guys will enjoy that as well.
We found that like this was the most fun kind of video to make rather than all the kind of whole content we'd be doing. We'll still be doing that, but less often, because we want to focus on this and make this good.
Yeah. It was actually very fun making this and editing it and all of that. I hope you guys enjoyed the video as well. And that's it. Like this video, share this video and subscribe. Please share this video. It's a banger video, we believe.